You just can't beat it, Thomas. That was a good one. I love Christian's sayings. Thank you so much, Christian. Thomas, what's going on, my friend?
We got a lot going on in the trucking world. Normally, news travels at the speed of molasses, but this time with the recent ruling by the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, tossing it down to a lower court, basically they're like, go do your homework again. We come back to us when you're ready. This has a lot to do about independent contractor statuses within large carriers. So that's kind of what the big thing is. And so when we're talking about that, basically back in 2018 and 2019, this gentleman was an owner-operator with Schneider. And so in 2020, after I'm assuming he left, he filed the suit and said that basically I was not really an owner-operator because you said all of these things, and it turns out it was another. And what had happened was, it mentioned in the case there were 5 weeks that he drove over 3,000 miles but made no money, and that another part was that he couldn't really pick his own freight or work with other brokerages if he wanted to. He had to basically get recommended loads, which is kind of the standard at trucking companies at large. When I was a load planner, I did the same thing. Oh, here's an LP or owner-operator. Here, give him this load. Give him this load. Does he want it? Yes or no? And so what we're seeing now in the courts, we see AB5, we see Seventh Circuit. The conversation now is the legal folks are paying attention to what does it mean to be truly independent? And do you have that economic freedom? And so the current contractor model is in a weird place because, you know, the guy who mows my lawn can mow other lawns. But imagine that I told him, well, you can mow these lawns and my lawn, but you can't just go out into other things. And that's kind of the situation we're running into with trucking, which is like you're operating under my authority. I'm taking this legal liability, but at the same time, are you able to just get a load on Uber or Coyote if you don't like what I'm giving you? And so this brings up a lot of interesting questions that trucking legal folks are going to have to think about, because if they change the nature of it and you have to make these adjustments, it's going to mess up your game plan. Owner-operators will pick different loads already, and having to make these adjustments could cost you a lot of money.
It is, but it seems like they're blurring the lines a little bit, right? Because there are those like this gentleman you're talking about that obviously had an issue with what was going on with him, right?
Yeah.
And I kind of side with what he's saying, right? Now, those that are having AB5 imposed upon them, not so much. They didn't ask for AB5, right? And they weren't being told they could only do this. They liked their situation that they were in. They liked their independence on that, right? So blurring those lines is really the issue, right?
Correct. And what we're seeing is, the old term being kicking and screaming. Well, it appears, the legal zeitgeist is moving towards, let's start reclassifying it because of gig workers, dang you Uber and Lyft. And so now owner operators, like you said, whether you want to or not, it looks like a lot of these courts now pay close attention to the political aspect. I normally don't touch on this, but the Ninth Circuit and the Seventh Circuit, Seventh Circuit's Illinois, Wisconsin, and Indiana, and the Ninth Circuit includes states such as California and most of the West Coast. There is a political thing where some of these judges that are elected, are wanting to basically push this up to the Supreme Court and try to get movement and make decisions on this based on what they're believing in. Other circuit courts that maybe lean more conservative obviously have not, made these kinds of decisions. So that is another factor to look at, is there is the potential that maybe some states are going to adjust these rules, and it could mess with the business environment. And that's the ultimate question we're dealing with is, looking at how the Fair Labor Standards Act and how National Labor Relations and everything, what does it mean? And so we're very early in the game. It's obviously a legal thing that's been going on for 3 years now. Look at AB5 since 2019. So we'll be talking about this for a while. But, the standard trucking operating model with owner-operators was because of competition. Too much competition, dang it. I can't compete with these small carriers, so I'm going to bring in some owner-operators, maybe make them no more than a quarter of my fleet, because I can't have them having too much decision. And so there's this also aspect of it where how much is enough, and if we make this decision where they have to treat them like employees, do you want more owner-operators as a large carrier, or just get more employees?
I mean, it is a bit of the competition that is there. Well, it's always competition. These aren't, charitable organizations. That's what we're built on, is the competition. It's also the flexibility that is, and that's the problem that is being ruined, right? It's part of that flexibility on both sides when you look at this. So there's good and bad that is there. There's situations where, this type of thing can help, and there's those where it's going to really mess some stuff up pretty bad for people.
So. A wrecking ball of litigation.
Yes. Blanket litigation for no reason is not my not something I like a bit. Also, you wanted to talk a little bit about the hidden cost of compliance. Let's dig into that just a little bit.
So had an excellent conversation with the folks at LogRock, Mr. Hunter Yaw. And we talk about compliance. It's not very sexy. Compliance is that thing you think about in the back office and, oh crap, now I'm in trouble. So thinking about this, the cool facts that he threw out was if you had 70 truck fleet, you would literally have over 3,000 pieces of documentation you got to keep your eye on. 3,000 documents. And the other thing is that your safety rating and how the FMCSA does the scoring, that if you start, it's a snowball effect. If you get one citation, they're going to start looking at you more. You get two citations, three, and then, next thing you know, your conditional status, you can't run anything. And so the interesting thing that we talked about, there's also a great article where Grace Sharkey interviewed Hunter as well. I recommend everybody check it out. But the coolest thing was that, or not cool, depending upon who you ask, is when it comes to nuclear verdicts. This is one thing I didn't know about, was that a lot of the, not ambulance chasers, we call them tractor trailer chasers, when you get in an accident, you say, call this guy, get a lot of money, we're gonna fight for you. They'll purposefully wait 2 or 3 years until the very end of your statute of limitations. Then they will literally throw the lawsuit against you. In the process of discovery, look for every piece of document in the past 3 years. They wait, it's a ticking time bomb. And so here's the best part. Imagine you did everything right. Your driver hit somebody and now there's an injury suit. Well, guess what? Did you get all your paperwork in the past 3 years? Did you make 1 or 2 mistakes? Because now I'm going to go through your stuff with a fine-tooth comb, and if I find out you forgot to falsify or you messed up 2 or 3 logs years later, guess what? Now I can't trust you. Now the jury can't trust you. Now you're going to pay $400,000 minimum on average to settle, and it's literally a gotcha. And so what Hunter was talking about, LogRock, they're using AI, they're using automation, and they're basically doing the part of where you get an AI helper. You're going to go through and you're going to have this dashboard. You have all your documents. You're going to make sure you don't forget it because it's one of those things you don't think about. You pay for it now. You're like, okay, I got other problems. Dispatching trucks, dealing with maintenance, but it'll sneak up on you. And the issue becomes that it can be potentially catastrophic, but it's usually the tail end of your thought process until it messes up.
Yeah, it really is because it's one of those things where you're going to ride that wave as long as there's no issues. Right? Yep. And hope that it doesn't happen to you.
That's the whole thing. The whole issue is like, I hope this doesn't happen to me. That's half of the battle with compliance because all it takes is a few instances where you're not fueling on duty. All it takes is a few instances where you decide to personal convey and you forget to note it on your logs. This is the level of granularity these law firms will go through just to find what $150 million settlement from Werner, and literally mentioned on the earnings report because of things like that. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, by the way. It just matters of what the court decided to do, and that's a huge chunk of change. Large carriers are often self-insured, so this comes straight out of the cream, as Wu-Tang Clan would say. That's your margins. That's what you don't want to lose because the trucking company on a good day, you're like 10%, 90 OR, 10% margins is like, hey, we're doing good.
Yeah, absolutely. It can absolutely ruin a quarter. There's no doubt about it. So having that investment up front is really the cheaper route to go, right?
Completely. And the battle is convincing people, smaller carriers who don't have access, why is this important? Why you should pay for it? How you integrate it? It's the Wild West out there. Smaller trucking companies right now are still stuck in the 80s. Yeah. And so, now's a great time to be a driver because hopefully it's a little bit easier other than the fact that there's a whole bunch of legal stuff looming over the horizon.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very difficult stuff. What do you got coming up next?
I got the newsletter, just came out Wednesday night. I like to spice things up a little bit. We're gonna have another one coming out Saturday, Loaded and Rolling, freightwaves.com/loaded and rolling. You can check it out. I'm eventually gonna get to 800 words so you don't have to read as much, but it'll be just as flavorful. And so that's always a fun part. One time I was at 3,000 words and I apologize to my readers in advance.
There you go. Excellent stuff. Thank you so much, Thomas. We'll check up with you again next week. Check out all of his stuff. Very interesting. Right now, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with a carrier update.